Welcome, Wargamers, to another YouTube channel video. I'm Chris, and today I'm doing another Build Me an Army Worthy Of, and today is Thranduil's Halls. And I'm going to do a sort of specific list that I took to a 700 point tournament recently. In the grand scheme of things, recently is 3 months ago, so the start of March, which was quite possibly the last tournament that was on, and that was Joshua Triffitt's part of the EAHC, the Not GT, which was a 700 point tournament, good and evil, run on the same weekend as the Games Workshop official grand tournament. So this was basically for people that couldn't make it to the grand tournament for whatever reason, whether they couldn't go for the whole weekend, couldn't afford it, or missed out on tickets because they went so quickly, which is obviously a good sign that they're selling out so quickly. So this was exactly the same rules pack as Games Workshop's grand tournament, except that there's 4 games on one day, not 7 over 2, or was it 8 over 2? Something like that. Anyway, like I was saying, it's good versus evil, so that influenced slightly the list that I was going to build. I think I always knew that I was going to go for Thranduil's Halls and Azog Hunters, because you may have seen some videos late last year where I acquired Sam Page's glorious Azog Hunters army list, so I knew I wanted to take them. And there will be a video of them as well. Whether that's up before this or after this, I'm not sure. We'll find out. So I knew I wanted to take them. I competed quite heavily last year, so I fancied a bit of a step down. Obviously, I still wanted to do well and win games, and if I could, podium or win the tournament, then great. But I was just going for pure try out some new lists, see what I can do, and test myself a bit more. Because I went for the sort of same army lists a few times last year, so I wanted something new, and I've had this army since their releases, pretty much. As soon as they all came up for sale, I bought them. So what, the Mirkwood Elves were 2014, the Rangers were 2013, I guess. So yeah, 6-7 years I've had a lot of these models, and because I was taking Azog Hunters, I was like, that makes a perfect counterforce. So that is why I picked Thranduil's Halls. 700 points, which I think is a nice number for them, and also, like I said, good versus evil. So let's start with the main man himself. I bought this model as soon as he became available, and that is Thranduil and Elk, and he is just gorgeous model, absolutely insane. The level of you can't do a bad paint job on this guy. As much as I tried, you really can't. He's just absolutely wonderful. So yeah, he pretty much has to be in the army for me, because he is so versatile. He is, like my friend Luke calls him, a Build-A-Bear Thranduil. So he starts off only on a century of points, but you can build him up however you like. You can give him Addition Elven Blade, Circuit of Kings, an Elk, Heavy Armour Horse, which you probably never would, an Elf Bow, so plenty of options there. Just to rank him up, because when you look at his stat line at the base, his base points, it's like the old school Thranduil from the old Lord of the Rings books, or the Pyjama Thranduil as he's called. So his base stats are: he's move 6 inches, fight 6, 2+ shoot value, strength 4, defense 4, which for a hero of legend, for your leader, isn't good, but we'll get to that. 2 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 6, 3 might, 3 run, 3 fate. So pretty. I mean, the stat line's okay for the starting points, but what you want to start adding is so he's already got his Elven Made Sword and his Elven Cloak, and his heroic actions are accuracy, strike, strength, and defense. So defense is good for your leader, especially when he can't get his base defense up that high, and strike, obviously, because then he can take on the big stuff. So you can have his additional Elven Made Sword, which is very expensive, but you get a whole bunch of rules. So when equipped with an additional Elven Made Sword, Thranduil increases attacks to 3, so that is perfect for your fight 6 hero, and additionally it takes him up to fight 7. Now he's a fight 7 hero with 3 attacks. Yeah, there's not a lot that's going to want to try and take him on, and if they do, they won't do that well against him. He also gets the Blade Lord special rule, which means whilst he's on foot, he receives +1 attack. Oh wow. Furthermore, Thranduil receives an additional attack for each enemy model he is engaged with after the first. This bonus is determined at the start of each fight and lasts until all strikes from that fight have been resolved. So if he gets outnumbered, so this is a great thing about if you do take one elk, which I would as well, I'll get onto the elk in a minute, if he gets dismounted, it's really not the end of the world. He is still a formidable fighting force. People almost don't want to dismount him because he's easier to deal with. If you can charge him while he's on his elk, he's easier to deal with than if you charge him while he's on foot, because he just gets more and more and more attacks, and more killing potential. So the Elven Blades are a must for me, I think. Going on to the elk, he is twice the points cost of a horse, because it is essentially an armoured horse. It gets defense 5 and 2 wounds, and also a bonus special rule, which is essentially for free in a way. If Thranduil charges into combat whilst riding his elk, Thranduil strikes are resolved at strength 5, so he is taking down your average troop defense is defense 5, so he's taking all that stuff down on 4s, so that's really nice. Suddenly defense 7 stuff is a lot easier to kill, so yeah, that's well worth it. For the 2 wounds as well, the extra wound, always put a hero on a horse or some sort of cavalry, in fact that's got 2 wounds, it's basically armoured defense 5, and gets that extra strength 5 and charge. That is awesome, so that is definitely in there as well. Heavy armour, definitely put on him, takes him up to, because he isn't wearing armour in the first place, takes him up to defense 6, which is sort of the bare minimum you'd want on your leader. The elf bow, if the 5 points are spare and you've got nowhere else to put it, then sure, it's a handy little tool to have on you, but that might tempt you to stay back with him and shoot some stuff and really want to get him in fighting and using his rules to the best effect. And finally, the Circlet of Kings. I've included it in the 700 point list. A lot of people swear by it and include it in every list. I would most of the time, probably 3/4 of the time. So the Circlet of Kings is the same as it's always been, which is this crown allows Thranduil to cast magical powers, Aura of Dismay and Nature's Wrath once each per game. It's automatically done and counts as a roll of 6 for the purposes of resisting Nature's Wrath. So once each, 3 per game. Aura of Dismay is awesome. I took it for the good versus evil because I'll be fighting evil stuff, and shamans aren't as prominent as they used to be. So I thought that would be really handy if I was coming up against some low courage goblins or orcs. Yeah, even if I channeled it and having 12-inch terror causing elves across the board, that really meant I'd dictate a lot of the charges because they would not be charging me. And Nature's Wrath is always handy, although the range has been halved from 6 inches to 3 inches, which has nerfed it quite heavily. You can still put it to really good effect, so that's why I took the Circlet of Kings. So that is Thranduil and how I built him. I took him with the additional Elven Blade Sword, Circlet of Kings, Elk, and the heavy armour. I didn't take the bow because I didn't have the points. And he is leading. On the back here we have a Palace Guard with shield and banner. Mostly because I don't have a banner model for any of the other troop types, so that was one of the only options for me, because I didn't have another option. And also I think it's quite handy to have the defense 6 and the potential fight 6 with these guys. So the Palace Guard, what they do, I've got my book in front of me here. Also within 3 inches of Thranduil, this model receives +1 bonus to their fight value. It's got from fight 5 to fight 6. So I also included 2 others with shield and spear in the force as well. I didn't want too many of them to spam it too much because they are rather pricey, but they can be a real nuisance to fight 5 opposing heroes because they're suddenly beating them. Be annoying to fight 6 heroes because suddenly draw against them, and they've got Elven made hand and half swords as well. Perhaps put them spear spotting the fight 5 stuff against. So if, say, alerts charges into a couple of your guys that are lucky in trouble, chuck one of these guys in. If Thranduil can't get in, fight 6, higher fight value. Yeah, really, really irritating guys these are. So just a couple. Give them spears and shields, so if they end up on the front, they've got defense 6, but I'm mostly going to keep them behind, just sort of going into key fights and make them more favourable for me. So that's why there's a couple of them. I then gave him the bulk of the warband, not only because he's the leader, but also because of the main army bonus. So sorry about that, camera died. Anyway, what was I saying? Army bonus. So obviously the Merca Rangers don't apply to your bow limit, so I took a little bit of an advantage of that. But the main one that I wanted to try and utilise was that whilst they are within 3 inches of Thranduil, all Palace Guard captains, Mirkwood Elf captains, Palace Guard, Merca Cavalry and Mirkwood Elves will also gain +1 to their wound rolls when making strikes. So basically everything is warband there. I have 6 Mirkwood Elves with shield and 6 with glaive. Everything Palace Guard will get +1 to wound whilst within 3 inches of Thranduil. So elves finally have that extra killing potential in combat. Something that Lothlorien perhaps have suffered from, maybe less so Rivendell, is not having that big beefy hero on horseback. They don't have a great cavalry option. Yeah, so they and obviously the low numbers as well, so they rely very heavily on their shooting, whereas this army suddenly allows you to get through some of that tougher stuff with the +1 to wound. So your Mirkwood Elf is exactly the same as a Galadhrim Elf now, or a Rivendell Elf, in that they're fight 5, 3+ shoot value, strength 3, defense 5, obviously defense 6 with a shield, 1 attack, 1 wound, and a max courage 5. And they have Elven made hand and a half swords now, so Elven blades across the board. So very sturdy, very handy. Yeah, and the +1 to wound I just had to try and use, which I did in tournament to good effect. And the next warband, let's go to this side, to Tauriel and 6 Mirkwood Rangers. So Tauriel is fight 6 with a 3+ shoot value, with a strength of 4 and defense of 5, 3 attacks, so 3 attack fight 6 hero, very nice, 2 wounds, courage 6, 3 might, 2 will, and 3 fate. Pretty much identical to Legolas, but +1 attack. She has armour, Elven made daggers, and an Elven cloak. She has heroic accuracy and heroic strikes, so 2 of the decent ones, 2 that I used over the tournament, and I did take an elf bow with her as well. I thought it would be better used on her as opposed to Thranduil, because she's got her Elven cloak, so she can hide and snipe things. Yeah, a little bit more helpful for her, I think. She has her super awesome rule is Blade Mistress. Tauriel receives an additional attack for each enemy she's engaged with after the first. So it's the same as Thranduil's Blade Lord special rule. She's surrounded and a bit of bother because she's defense 5, she's quite weak, quite easy to take down. But she does have 3 fate, and she gets all these extra bonus dice. So again, your opponent has a question to ask, like, usually you go and try and trap heroes, win the fight and you take them down, but it's just harder to win the fight against her if you do that. Then she does have a Vengeful Fury special rule, which is to do a Keely, which isn't my army, so I won't go with that now. So yeah, a nice... A couple of years ago I used to take Aladan and Elra here a lot, because with their elf bows, because elf bows, strength 3 bows with 3 might attached to them is awesome, and I was willing to spend that one with Tauriel. She's sort of my Mike Caddy, if you like. I really don't... Not that I don't care about her in the army, she's the one that I least value in the army out of Thranduil, and you've probably already seen on the left Legolas. I'll spend her might for the heroic moves, heroic accuracies for the things I need to get things done. Thranduil for the fighting and killing, and Legolas is probably for the shooting and killing something. But Tauriel's there to basically support in whatever way she can, and she has multi-purpose in that she's got her off bow, 3 might attached to it, her heroic accuracy is handy, and she's really good in combat. And the Mirkwood Rangers are just brilliant. So they nearly won me the tournament in the end. I say nearly because this was a 4-game tournament. If anyone knows me, I don't win 4-game tournaments. I can only manage 3 games before my brain just shuts off and says no. So in the final game, it was Storm the Camp. I feel I was quite heavily disadvantaged because my opponent had a Isengard force with a ballista, loads of crossbows, a really defensible position. I didn't have a counter to that really, having to go across the board with such low defence. If I played it perfectly, if it was game 1, I'd have held everybody back. And what I did actually do, was move my Mirkwood Rangers up up behind a fence, so I could shoot him, but he couldn't shoot me because of their elven cloaks. And I caused some heroic accuracies with Tauriel, and I was just chipping away his force. So like I said, if this was game 1, I'd just move them up, start taking some bits out, pushing towards breaking, maybe take out the ballista. As it was, the ballista managed to get a cheeky shot on Thranduil and wound him early, which meant I was immediately chasing the game, so I had to do something else. So that was a mistake on my part. But those elven cloaks are really, really, really handy, and also they have the same special rule as Tauriel and Thranduil in that they get extra attacks when they are outnumbered. So they get up to a maximum of three attacks total. I believe it's 3 attacks and not 3 bonus attacks. Just have a look. 3 bonus attacks. There we go. So they can be up to 4 attacks if they have 4 guys around them. That's crazy good. Yeah, so because they're defense 3, if they lose the fight, they're going to die. They're likely to die against 1 strike anyway. So if they're surrounded, then they're all the better for it. So people tend to not do anything with them. What I did quite commonly at this tournament, I say commonly, I only had 2 games with each force, because it was only a 4-game tournament, but both times I played an Isengard force. But what this army did really well, where it suffered at Storm the Camp in trying to get across the board quickly. I don't have Heroic March in the force, so I had to suffer a lot of crossbow shots, a lot of ballista fire, and I didn't have much to answer that. The whole ground game I played, again against Isengard, with Oglok, Lurtz, there was actually a Shaman, and Rashku. A key tactic that I tried when it was all getting quite close quarters in the corner of the board when we all came in the same place, was charge with the Mirkwood Ranger into 2 opponents, and then bring in either a glaive or a Parascarlet Spear and back them up. So the Mirkwood Ranger would get a bonus attack for fighting 2 opposing models, so he'd be on 2 attacks, and then I'd get the glaive for a 3rd attack, and I'd have a banner for basically a 4th attack with fight 5, so I was winning a lot of fights. Combine that with Thranduil's +1 to wound rules nearby, I was cutting through defense 6 Orokai and Berserkers like they were nothing, and I just wasn't losing fights, and I was killing when I was winning them as well, and it was very, very satisfying. Also in that game, this is where Legolas became really, really key. So I've taken him with, again, because it was it's good versus evil, I took Horse and Orcrist. Because Orcrist, as we all know, as I talked about in the Building Army by the Thorns Company, it's an elven blade, he has elven made daggers anyway. It causes terror against Orcs, Goblins and Orokai, and it does D3 wounds against Orcs, Goblins and Orokai. And the likelihood is, good versus evil, I'm going to be playing Orcs, Goblins and Orokai, and in both my games I did face Orokai. And he's just leading 3 Mirkwood Elves with bow. So, I don't know if this would normally take me over the bow limit, but obviously the Mirkwood Rangers don't count towards the bow limit. But yeah, the reason these are so such a small warband, they are my irritating little archery troops. So, got your big scary block Thranduil, which does all the combat killing. You've got Tauriel doing the sneaky shooting, and then can sort of hold their own if they get attacked. These guys come in and basically are just objective grabbers if they need to be. The Mirkwood Rangers are also good at that because they can hide in the terrain, but they're good in combat as well. I'd mostly use these guys to just run off and perhaps go and pressurise something, or in because they have the high defence in recon or something. That's the idea. They'd be better at running up the board. But they won me the hold ground scenario, so we were all fighting in the very bottom left hand corner. It was all very close and compact, where Thranduil is +1 to wound, his Aura of Dismay was all doing very, very well. My opponent rolled quite poorly for his Shaman and his small warband to come on. The Shaman was leading 6, like 3 shields and 3 pipes, something like that. But came on the far end of the corner, so we were all fighting his bottom left. He came on the far right, coming towards the centre objective, basically there to claim it whenever the game would end. Legolas came in about 4 turns late, which obviously was blind luck. But what he then did after that was just run to the centre, killed the shaman in one hit because he had his D3 wounds against him, and then took everything else out, and I was able to win whole ground in the middle, basically because this quite deadly small warband doesn't take a lot out of the main bulk of the force, but what it can do really well. So you've got Legolas coming on. He can go off basically by himself, get in a really good position, perhaps pick some shots out, go for leaders, go for the mounts, and then get involved in the combat when the lines clash. He can go off and do something in the meantime, and it doesn't take away from your main force. So that was the kind of idea behind this build. It's 700 points. I've really enjoyed it, although I lost my last game, but won the first game that I had with them. It was touch and go for a while, but I feel like I always had it, just because the elves weren't dying. Having the 2 attacks from the Merkwood Rangers backed up by the guy for a 3rd attack with the banner, just keep winning, having 4 dice at fight 5 to win the fights, even against the heroes, and then +1 to wound. It was very reliable. And Tauriel, just basically using a might to her combat through stuff. Once she got going, she was unstoppable. Thranduil with all his buffs, although he's super expensive, he's definitely worth it. He's a scary monster to come up against, but so yeah, that is my 700 points Thranduil's Halls. Would I take anything different at different levels? I think 700 to 800 is basically perfect for them. As soon as you start getting higher than that, your opponent starts to get big stuff in as well, which would be better than a lot of these like Defense 5, quite squishy heroes. Thranduil as well is quite squishy. Defense 6 isn't amazing. And all those dice don't always help. You can still bosh it quite badly. And he's in trouble still when he loses fights, because you need Defense 7, Defense 8 with your big hero like that, so that's his only real downfall. So yeah, 700 to 800 points is probably where I'd take them to. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video on how and why I built this Thranduil's Halls army. Don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe, and thank you for watching.